Andreas's master finally has a confirmed name, and that name is the Core. According to Andreas, it is filled with the brightest minds of Amphibia's past, which, knowing Andreas, probably means his ancestors, who made Newtopia a glorious and horrifying empire. It is a hive mind, a receptacle containing all these different strands of intelligences from ages gone by. But even knowing that still leaves open a lot of questions. What exactly is this being, other than being a hive mind? Where does it come from? Where did Andreas find it? Did he always have access to it? What are the implications of that? Why does the Core want Marcy as a host? Why does the Core even need a host? What does being a host even mean in this context? Well, let's investigate. Before we proceed, we have to think about what the Core is not. It is not an unknowable eldritch being like a lot of people thought. It's not some Cthulhu-like monster from some realm of unspeakably ancient horror. It also does not appear to be invincible or all that otherworldly. It's technology, and technology, even alien technology, is a lot easier for, I think, the average viewer to comprehend than some mystical, horrific force from the depths of deep time. Now, is it stronger than Andreas? Most likely, considering Andreas, for all his political authority, is just a 20-foot-tall newt with a flaming sword. I can still imagine Anne being able to defeat the Core with her gem powers. It is not a completely unstoppable force that our heroes are not going to be able to defeat except through some strange conceit. We have a clear-ish idea of what it is. And it seems like the function of the Core is to contain all the minds of past leaders in order to help the leader of the present. Imagine if the current president of the United States had the ability to access a repository filled with the minds of FDR, Lincoln, etc. So the current leader could understand how these great leaders of the past would react to certain catastrophes of the present, and then model their own response after the responses of these old leaders. This is not completely insane. There have been a lot of science fiction stories plumbing the depths of this scenario, going all the way back, at least to the golden age of science fiction after the end of World War II. This whole very creative milieu of Heinlein and Ray Bradbury and Asimov and all these very fascinating science fiction writers contemplating the future that seemed to await the United States and the world at large in the atomic age. Now, that does not mean science fiction's only function then or now is to predict the future, but science fiction does allow us to contemplate scenarios of the future and then deconstruct those scenarios and see what kinds of problems and anxieties would result from them. This is the basis of a lot of great science fiction stories. A new technology is invented and it magically makes everyone's lives better is not a story. That's just banal utopianism, and it's also not very honest or forthright either. Even great technologies usually have some sort of drawback. Having a technology that appears to be so great, but then once you dig beneath the surface, it's not so great, that's a good story. So we get a lot of stories exploring these hive mind concepts that are not superficially malevolent. They're not designed by some evil overlord, but once you dig a little bit deeper, the horror becomes clear. There are so many things that could go wrong. What authority does the hive mind have? Does it have more authority than the actual leader? And what if these leaders were, bad? What if, despite their august reputations, they were pushing the country in a unfortunate direction that the current leader should try to go away from? What if their advice is just outdated and the new leader needs to go in a different direction? All of these questions result from premises very much like the one we appear to see here in Amphibia. So we know what the core is, at least to a certain extent, and we know what it's not. But we are not yet clear about what function it will play in the future of the show. While I do not much like these Earth episodes, I suspect we are going to be spending a lot more time on Earth even into Season 3B. Now, we're going to spend more time in Amphibia than we did in Season 3A, but I don't know why they would spend so much time introducing all of these Earth characters if they were just going to be one-offs who wouldn't come back as the show approached its climax. If the show just ignored these Earth characters, that would really drive home that these Earth episodes were just a complete waste of time. Hopefully the show knows a little better than that. Now, why does the core want to take over Earth anyway? I doubt the show will provide a long explanation for this. It doesn't seem like Andreas or his ancestors had a close connection to Earth. They just are trying to exploit different worlds in order to make themselves richer, and Earth is one of those worlds. It could just be as simple as that. But then, we still have questions about why the core wants Marcy specifically. If the core just wanted a vessel, it would not be too hard for Andreas or one of his flunkies to just find some hapless newt to use as a vessel. But those newts are not sufficient for Andreas. Why? At first I thought it had to do with Marcy being human, or Marcy being connected to the gems, both of which made some sort of sense to me, but according to what Andreas is saying in Olivia and Yunnan, it seems to have a lot more to do with how clever and thoughtful Marcy is, which is an interesting twist. And we're left to consider why it matters that the host is intelligent. If the purpose is just to have the host be this brainless body that the core operates, you would not need a witty, clever, practically intelligent person to solve the problems what they face. So why does the core need a host like Marcy? Why is Andrea so impressed that Marcy was the only one who could defeat him at Flipboard? Well, it might be that the core does not completely override the personality of its host. It just flows into that person's mindset, altering that mindset in eerie and destabilizing and disquieting ways, but not erasing it. So Marcy could still be a little like Marcy, only all her dorky, awkward charm, all her tenderness and compassion would likely be gone, and all that would be left of Marcy, other than her voice actress, Haley Ju, who is doing a great job so far from what we see at the end of Olivia and Yunnan at voicing the possessed Marcy. Other than her, you would just have Marcy's cunning, her guile, completely unmoored from ethical concerns. If Darcy, as they call Dark Marcy in the credits of Olivia Newnan, and a name I will use, even though it reminds me far too much of Pride and Prejudice. If Darcy has Marcy's personality, but without any of the more positive, empathetic, ethical qualities of that personality, it would be a lot more disturbing to me personally than if Marcy was just completely erased and overridden. Marcy was clumsy and awkward. Core Marcy, Darcy, will probably be graceful and refined and elegant and cold and mechanical. Marcy never wanted to be alone. That was her greatest fear, and Core Marcy will not be alone. Part of Marcy might like that, eerie as it sounds. Part of her might like not being vulnerable, not having to feel shame. Likely, a larger part of her is going to want to escape. This is that kind of show. But the struggle to free Marcy might not be as simplistic and straightforward as Anne and Sasha might think, especially if Core Marcy, Dark Marcy, still demonstrates a lot of attributes that they associate with Marcy. It being like 75% Core and 25% Marcy is a lot more chilling than it just being all Core. It makes it harder to say to yourself that it's not really Marcy. Thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can and you want to see more videos like this. Keep watching Amphibia. I'm thrilled and entranced by these Sasha and Marcy episodes. They are the best episodes in the show by a good mile. I'm less interested in the core itself than I am in how it interacts with Marcy's own fears and dreads and longings. But I suppose we'll see what happens as the show keeps progressing. Anyway, tune in soon for my next analysis. It will be coming soon, promise you that. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.